Okay, sorry for being here late. We have a quorum. Clerk.
Yes, sir, we have a quorum.
All right, so call the meeting to order. First item on the special agenda is a consent agenda for the hilltop tree removal and the IGA of the county. Is there any item on the consent agenda that a member of council wishes to discuss further?
Mr. Mayor,
Hey,
I'd like to discuss the IGA.
Okay, IGA and anybody else?
hey,
What have you?
Hilltop tree removal.
I'm not being able to understand what you're saying, Vice Mayor. Try it again.
The hilltop tree removal, item A.
Okay, so both items, we're going to take both items off. We will deal with the consent items A first, hilltop tree removal. Is there a specific question or do you want a presentation from staff?
A couple of questions. The staff report we got Friday said that $50,000 was going to be far in excess of the amount needed. The approval now is for $50,000. What's the cost of this?
Yes, sir, Mr. Vice Mayor, those are on two different things. So the $50,000, sir, is for the removal of 71 trees. They're working on site today. When I said in excess of, that's for some other trees that are going to be removed. There were some additional trees that we're going to try to relocate. We've since decided that doesn't make sense. They won't make it. So that number for the removals will be far less than 50, which falls under my approval, sir. So the $50,000 is for removal of the 71 trees. That's what that excess of. Just want you guys to know there'd be additional work for removal of other trees, but this 50,000 is for the removal of the 71 trees, sir. Does that make sense?
Yes, the removal of these trees, there's going to be stumps left. What's going to happen with these stumps? We're going to see another $50,000 remove stumps sometime in the future?
Sir, they just do them with dozers when they have the heavy equipment there. This is to bring the trees down.
What happens to the stumps?
They'll dig them up, sir, when they're graded. Or for ones they're not grading, they'll grind them. But I think most of them just dig them up.
The majority, Mr. Vice Mayor, majority they're gonna knock over with a backhoe and the root ball falls over with it. So there's quite a bit of removal. They did this last time. A lot of the root ball comes up with it. So I anticipate a lot of that happening on this effort too. And then when they do the grading effort, the blade going over to the rough grading, pretty much take care of those root balls.
Something reports that we had 9,000 cubic yards of soil that we have to pay to remove now out of that Agua Fria dirt pile.
That 9,000, sir, was ours all along. We knew that. That was never part of Agua Fria's dirt. There's dirt that we have to take off for the parking lot, sir. That's our responsibility, not theirs. So that was never an Agua Fria responsibility for that 9,000, sir. That's ours.
You don't worry about it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Vice Mayor, we think they still have to remove at least, they had to remove 15,000 before. How much they've been making a big impact in the last week. What they're going to do now, I couldn't tell you. But the 9,000 was always ours, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions about item A? If not, is there a motion to approve or ratify the approval of the removal of 71 trees from the Lowell Hilltop facility by Brightview for a total cost not to exceed $50,000?
So moved.
There's second.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion is adopted. Now, item B, do you have specific questions or would you like a presentation?
Specific questions. So is it just a reimbursement? Is there an annual fee on top of reimbursement? Is there a cost override? Or is it just a reimbursement for anything they do to the lights?
That's no required, yes. So there is no annual fee. As a matter of fact, they don't even mark up the invoices for any repairs or O&M. You just get. So they're placing signs, so the pole gets hit. I think 2 years ago, we had to pay for the equipment right there by the corner of the southwest corner of Litchfield and Cal that got hit by a vehicle. So they replaced the equipment cabinet. I think it was somewhere between 25 and 30,000. They just sent us the direct invoice for it and we paid it.
Okay,
They actually fixed it, they did all the work, and we didn't get invoiced for months.
okay, and then right now, based on what it says, is it covers 4 lights that we have in process up to 7. Is that enough to have that written now, so we don't have to come back and adjust it again with all the adjustments that we're making?
Councilman Leclerc, doing the math of the ones we think we're gonna get, the Village, Denny, possibly Villanueva, and then the existing 4, that was where I think we collaborated on the 7.
Okay.
And
That's
I think that's the ones we were thinking of.
100%.
So we budgeted 25,000 this year. Previous year's expense was,
It varies depending on how big of a piece of equipment gets hit. We usually spend somewhere between 1,700 and about 3,500 on, they go out and they'll do traffic control, switch out a green or red or yellow ball, or, various maintenance items. The pole on the corner of Dysart got hit a year ago. I think that was $24,000 hit. 3 or 4 years ago is when that equipment happened over here on the corner. So some years we only pay a few thousand, other years we pay a little bit more than that. So we had to think of something that was somewhere kind of right down the middle. So we ended on 25,000 for the yearly budget.
thank you.
Any other questions?
No, sir.
Any questions from council? Is there a motion to approve an amendment to the existing IGA with the county for traffic signal operation and maintenance?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussions? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Now the regular business for this meeting, the first item is a discussion on the Litchfield Road roundabout landscape and irrigation costs.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I don't have a formal presentation. The item up for discussion is a request for up to $191,000 change order to Nesbitt Contracting to complete the landscape median, the landscape irrigation for the median and the restoration along Sunset Terrace with a little bit of work along the library and the school. At the time of the contract, our engineering consultant was not performing fast enough for us to get this done based on how fast we need to progress the projects. So we ended up having to go and bid the project at 60% complete with a follow-up bid at 90% complete. At the time of 90% plans, we still do not have landscape or irrigation plans. So the staff and Nesbitt put together kind of a rough order of magnitude of what we could expect in the roundabout. Again, the plans hadn't been completed, so this was an estimate of what our scope would be. We did have them come down to the existing roundabout for ideas and aesthetics. We settled on $220,000. When the landscape plans were finally provided to us in June, they were bid out to 3 contractors, and the total price of the low bid was $410,000, with $220,000 in the existing contract. We're asking for the roughly $191,000 to do all the landscape and irrigation. Approximately $45,000 roughly of that overall bid of the total 410 is the restoration work along Sunset Terrace. So that would be bringing in dozens of plant material to match their existing aesthetics. The landscape irrigation extensions, all they're providing part. They lost some of their land on the north end and gained a little bit more on the south end because of the shape of the roundabout. So they really didn't lose or gain any land. We just moved irrigation from one side to the other and replaced the plant material. We put irrigation extensions, landscape rock, and some pump work. They had a pump that was in the way of one of our ramps. The remaining amount is for the palm extension, the palm installations, the various plant material, the gabion baskets in the roundabout only, and the beaching for the most part. I'm happy to answer any questions, discuss this.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Blair.
So Keith, again, we're reacting last minute to having to put something together weeks before we're supposed to be opening up. We're not even going to be ready for the opening for this to be together. And this was a rush project. But how we got to the point that we are reacting last minute and we're 60% off on the estimate is ridiculous. We should have asked for these plans from everybody in advance and held somebody accountable, because we got to hold you guys accountable to this. We shouldn't be reacting last minute and be off again by 50%. There's just no justification that I can come up with in my mind that allows us to sit here and have an estimate given to us of 220 in advance of the project. And then we're at project's completion, and now you're presenting us a $410,000 job. That makes no sense to me. It's incumbent upon you to deliver us good estimates that we're able to make educated decisions and spend the city's money the right way, and not have to be reactionary last minute, which is what you put this reacting last minute to this situation right now. To me, it just makes no sense that we're A, that far off, and B, we're having to respond again to a last minute situation.
Councilman Rivera, I thank you for the feedback. The estimate is quite a bit off. I do say that. And the unit prices are all over the place. There's no excuse for why we were coming so low. I can tell you things, you know, we're getting $5,000 bids for each palm, where when we install them here at the roundabout, they're actually $8,500 a piece. On the counter side, the irrigation improvements are $90,000 on the roundabout, and over here they were $340,000 per square mile. So they are all over the place. It is hard for anybody to tie it down. Again, not an excuse. And we did poke and prod Matthew. I can't tell you how many emails Matthew and I exchanged with the consultants to try to get them to complete the work. Colliers Engineering Design and their subcontractor. We did talk about, and now that looking back, we should have just fired them on the landscape portion of this and hired our own landscape architect to do the work. That we were working with that same landscape architect for the library and Hilltop. So it was kind of the same pigeonhole we put ourselves into with Colliers in the first place. So there's a lot of issues with the consultant in general. Staff should have done a different approach with hiring a landscape irrigation subcontractor. We didn't, and I do apologize about that.
Once again, we are behind the 8 ball because we weren't proactive in our thoughts, and we're having to completely react to this.
We did have them put in all of the landscape, all of the sleeves are in the ground. So we had them while they had the road tore up. I had to put all the landscape sleeves in the ground. So that saved us about $100,000 for in cutting up new asphalt. We did have them put quite a bit of laterals in the front part of the library to approach so that they can come across the road. So we were trying to get ready for it. We just didn't have that product. We did do a few things to not be as reactionary. So we were very reactionary. So,
But I will tell you that should be expected. Those are the expected behaviors that should be done by your team, is that we don't have to go back and re-dig up new road. So when we're putting in new road, we should put in those. Now, all that you're saying right there, that's an expectation of the job being done. So that part, good, that part's done. But all the other stuff, the budgeting, all these other things, how we've given resources to this team over and over to be able to get ahead of these things, and now we're reactionary again. This can't happen going forward. So I've said my piece. Now we have to figure out what to do with the budget.
Vice Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. I had a couple of things. We have had multiple problems with this engineering firm to the point that we've terminated on more than one contract. Is Joe or somebody looking at a possible claim against these guys for the damages? Because it seems like we've got damages of hundreds of thousands of dollars, them being unable to complete their contracts timely.
Joe is here with us. Mr. City Attorney, would you like to address that question?
Yeah, we can definitely look at doing a notice of, the damages and going against them. We've put them on notice when we terminated them. on the other areas. So, but I would need the specifics with regard to what our damages are, and if we're still encountering and still finishing up the project, it may be a little premature to submit a claim, but we definitely have the option, the ability to go after them for those damages because of their failures.
Mr. Vice Mayor, I'm sorry. We know we have change orders that you guys approved before that will be expected to be repaid by Colliers, if you remember those, on design mistakes. And I will tell you there'll be more, but there are definitely some that will be sending. We have been tracking those change orders that are their fault.
Yeah.
How you-
Mr. Vice Mayor, I have a detailed spreadsheet. I've actually engaged conversations with their transportation director, who is in Rhode Island, I think. He has a list. We have itemized it for the errors and omissions portion of the contract. That will be the claim that I expect to go on. So when it comes to errors and omissions, that can be a compounding claim because we have for instance, subgrade. We set the subgrade, contract goes out and blades it, and then we find out that the median had the 2-foot wide median had an 18-inch break across it after they graded it. So then the contractor could not only redo all that work, but come back and compound additional tasks. So we've been tracking those compounds as well.
My statement on this though is that we knew in advance that they had not delivered what we needed to be able to put together proper bids and to understand the scope of work that was necessary. And why did we not make a judgment at that time to get somebody else on board?
We felt we were too far along at that time, sir, to change up.
So we knew we were gonna run into this 6 months ago.
Councilman McClure, so there is a level of, you have to have a level of confidence in a professional consultant, and we can't open CAD and we can't check the grades and elevations. They have a duty, according to the Arizona Board of Technical Registration, to provide constructible technical documents. I actually serve on the Arizona Board of Technical Registration and Enforcement Advisory Council. These guys are being reported to the AZBTR for this. The level of reliability is that they have to be a constructible set. They were sealed. They were for construction. It wasn't until we had the contractor go through it in advisable capacity in the beginning. We had EPS group, our on-call consultant, review several things. These things happen. I've done tens of millions of dollars in construction management for DOTs and cities. It is very difficult to catch these things early. I can tell you, we did 4 or 5 quality control levels with these contractors or with Colliers, and they still found a way to make the plans not constructible, not only between our project, but we have had many of these claims are going to be between Agua Fria and McCarthy, which they've already been tracking it as well. They have way more than we do, and the library. So
But using your own words, you fired them off other projects for non-deliverable. So we've already taken an action in the past because they did not deliver. At that time, we had other projects with them that we knew that they had not delivered on. So it makes sense to me if we fire them off other projects, that we'd have fired them off this project, or at least look to bring in a third party to get us ahead of steam and then go back and fix the contract with them. We didn't work proactively in this case.
by the time we fired them, we were 60 or 70% complete with the route.
We fired them under
We
that.
fired them all.
Because then they were what, 20% planes, 25% planes? They were much further along than these.
It literally was shoving a bunch of mud through a funnel at that time, 3 or 4 months ago. We found out all of this hit at once. It was not a fun couple of OAC moments with Agua Fria, the library, and Nesbitt, finding out all these issues all at once and how we had huge grade busts across each project that compounded. It just kept compounding.
If we're being honest, sir, we would like to have fired McCarthy on all contracts. However, we feel like I'm sorry, I apologize. Thank you, Colliers. Sorry. We would like to fire the Colliers on all projects. However, we felt like we were too far along, and such as this project, not on the underpass, but this project was much further along. We would like to fire across the board, but we didn't feel like we could. I apologize for the error on St. McCarthy instead of Colliers.
Councilman Allen.
Thank you. I would like to direct this question to the city manager. As council member Claire mentioned, this project is significantly over budget. We're looking at, well over $500,000 up to, I think, potentially even $800,000 over budget by the time this is over. And so what I really want to know is, what is staff learning from this project to make changes to improve the project development before it comes to council for approval?
I think that's a fair question, Councilor Allen, thank you. And I would agree, the project estimate's coming in this much. Long term, I would think I've learned a lot from this project. I think we squeezed a lot into a very tight timeline that makes it hard. Giving council accurate guesses on plans that don't exist are hard. And I think it comes back to bite us because we're giving we're giving estimates off plans that don't exist. So I don't think we would do that. I don't think we would put ourselves in such a timeline to do that. I think we have to allow ourselves more time to give your accurate estimates. And I think it's okay for us to say that we can't give an estimate until the plans exist. I think that's better to say that we don't know yet because the plans don't exist, rather than give you a guess that turns out to be 60% off. I think that's much more fair to you. Okay. Looking back, if I was starting this project today, I would tell you that we would need to hire a project manager to be over this project altogether. That's nothing on Keith or Randy, but I think it's too much on staff to have our regular work every day in these projects too. And I would have hired a special projects manager to be over this entire project if we had to do over again. I feel like I've learned a lot. I think it was too much to try to pack into a timeline this short on a staff this small. That's very much a 5,000 level foot view, but I think we learned a lot from this project. Also, if we're being honest, as I said on Colliers, I would have fired Colliers across the board even if they added more time, because I think it's caused more problems than it was worth to keep on. So I think for me personally, I think I learned a lot from the ripples we've had in this project. If that makes sense. Again, I apologize if that's a high level answer.
That's all that I can exercise supervision over, is these high level things. I can't get into the nitty gritty with Colliers and trees, and that's not my role. But I am glad to hear that you would commit to spending more time up front in the project planning phase, because I think that will end up paying off dividends later. And I think we're seeing what happens on the back end when that doesn't take place, that extra time up front. So I'm glad to hear that you're thinking about how changes can be made to future project planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
Vice Mayor.
1 second. Councilor, I'm sorry.
I just want to make a couple comments. The timeline on this was really significant in that it dictated a lot of what we had to do. We couldn't have waited for plans to have complete plans for landscaping because we don't have them yet, do we?
We just got them.
Just got them. So how much time does it take us to go out to bid?
We went off we saved time by going off the cooperative, and we selected really good contractors. We stayed 2 months on that.
So if we hadn't done that, that's an example of being proactive. If we hadn't done that, we would be 2 months out before we would even have bids back, not to mention the additional time involved in getting the work completed. So really the timeline is what's made this so difficult. The other thing that I think was proactive on everybody's part was the idea that using one contractor or engineer, for the entire project should have given you some, what's the word I'm looking for? Continuity and some things that he could cookie cutter paste here and there and make it easier. Colliers used to have a strong reputation, and they have recently become not as good. So I think that played into it. I think we trusted them. I think you followed up on what you were supposed to. This is not something that I'm getting sideswiped with right now. I've heard about Colliers and the problems going on for months. But again, in the middle of the stream, it's sometimes not the right time to change horses. If you have a lot of stakes in time, then it would make perfect sense. But we have such a hard deadline that I don't think that would have worked. So I think it's just a bad situation the way around. Pricing, as you shared, is all over the place. Whether that's Collier's problem or market issues, we don't really know. But when you see the significant difference in what it's costing from one roundabout to the next for landscaping materials, it's that's definitely a question.
Mr. Vice Mayor, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I have still got my questions. I never got to.
Okay.
The request is for 191,000. The city manager sent us an email that said that the 191,000 includes a $37,000 credit for deleting the pavers. The sheet attached packet shows that Colliers has got 190,000, not Colliers, I'm sorry, Nesbitt has got $190,016, including 36,800 for pavers. What is the request you're asking for?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Keith, the 37,000, the pavers, we've already taken out the 37,000. They're not in the 191, correct?
No, actually, the 191 is out the door. It includes that 37. So if we took,
Yes.
yeah, so that, I think I put in here and said, if we wanted to take the pavers out and replace it with DG, that would save us 37 off of that one.
Off the 191. Okay, all right. Mr. Vice Mayor, did you catch that, sir?
Yes, that's what I thought. There was some conflict there. I thought that's the way it was going to work out, looking at the bid sheet from Nesbitt here.
So
But
that takes you about 154 and some change.
the one thing I don't know is what that savings is. They've got 36.8 in here for the pavers, but then you're going to add DG instead. You're going to put 30,000 in DG in there?
Significantly less. We're a few thousand in DG because it's the square footage is only in the north and south median noses, just where they are near the roundabout and where they come out a little bit. It's almost exactly the same as the roundabout here, where it's just the noses. So a few thousand in DG.
So the question is, do we want to authorize $190,016, including the pavers, or do we want to authorize 36,883 less than that, substituting in DG for pavers? Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Don't you give yourself a little wiggle? Like, for example, 160.
2,000, yeah.
And are these pavers just the pavers coming to the point of the roundabout? Or are they in walkways creating,
Just the noses, just the median noses.
so it's in any space that's going to create a sidewalk or a walk? So that we're going to have uneven walking space.
No, sir. Just in the median nose, and there's a little median nose on the west side there before you enter the school, and then the two on the north and south sides of the actual roundabout itself.
So, Mr. Vice Mayor, to give us a little wiggle, maybe we take that from 191 down to 160. That gives you a little wiggle for DG, as you were saying. If Mayor and Council would like to decrease it further, you certainly could. You could remove some palm trees, as I had in my email. Just to be clear, these are the palm trees in the medians and in the island. You could take some palms out. But my only question for you there is, if you're going to plan to put them back in the future, I wouldn't take them out now. You just pay more to plant them later. But that's a question only you can answer. And certainly we can tell you an item for a palm tree. Like say for example, you'll take out 5 palms, 10 palms. We can give you a number on that. But that's why I want to get you thinking on that with what your preference is here. Again, if you want to have less palm trees long term, that's fine. But if you want to plant them more, if you're planting more a year from now, that doesn't make sense in my opinion. That's at your discretion, of course.
I'm not interested in palm trees. I was interested in what these numbers are you're asking for from us.
You're interested in the quote on the palm tree, sir?
No, I'm not interested in deleting palm trees. I wanted to know what the numbers you're asking. Was it 190, 191, or 160?
Taking off the paper, sir, I would ask for 160. Is that, again, that gives you a wiggle for additional DG, as you said.
Any other questions, Mr. Vice Mayor?
No, that's it. Thank you.
So, question for the city attorney, city engineer. He said that the irrigation part of the quote for this project was $300,000.
For the, in comparison, what I meant was the existing roundabout, when we built it with the Shield Square, that had about 300,000 in irrigation, depending where you want to call the cutoff, versus the 90,000 that we're getting a quote for the new roundabout. I was using that as a comparison on how the price difference has changed.
Okay, the way you stated it earlier was that the current roundabout, our old roundabout was 90,000 and the new one was 300. So that was just an error in what you made as the statement.
Yes, sir.
Are the costs that are in individual items within the irrigation quote, are they consistent between the two roundabouts?
Like the bubblers and the pipe and everything.
Correct.
Yes, they are.
All right.
And we're using a small change with the public grounds wanted a slightly different timer than we're using for the Litchfield Square. But so that was a little more expensive. That's already it.
Have you gone through and looked at the difference between what it costs us to landscape the roundabout that we have, the Litchfield Square roundabout, and the cost of this roundabout? If you look at the line item by line item and understand why it's so different.
Mr. Mayor, the landscape quote for the Litchfield Square, I looked at it recently, but when we built the Litchfield Square, they gave it to in lump sums. So we had a lump sum for plant material, a lump sum for irrigation, a lump sum for pavers. So there were less line items with not as much of a breakdown. It wouldn't have been apples and apples. I would have to see if I could get it from Aiken Garner to get the breakdown. But what I can tell you is the components are the same. Because that we gave them the Litchfield Square project and said, we want this type of pipe, we want this type of sprinkler, we want this type of emitter, all that. So I can tell you the components were the same, just the unit rates seem to have gotten a little cheaper. Just the irrigation components, the landscape items seem to have gotten more expensive.
The only landscape item you mentioned in your earlier presentation was palm trees. And you said palm trees have gotten cheaper. So what, I'm trying to understand, I for the life of me cannot get my arms around spending $400,000 or now $370,000 on landscaping around it. It just sounds outrageous to me, particularly when we know that we spent about 90,000 on the roundabout that we have, and the roundabout we have is beautiful. So I don't understand how staff can bring that without really being able to justify and understand line item by line item. What is it that's driving this out? You know, that kind of inflation is not going on in the economy. It was going on when we built the original roundabout. We hit it, it was much more expensive when we built it than when we planned it. But I don't see those kind of cost things driving through the economy today when you expect it to go up. Literally, it's almost what, 300%, 150% more for landscaping roundabout today versus a few years ago.
Mr. Mayor, I apologize. I think I threw a couple of monkey wrenches in there. So backing it up. So my earlier statement, what I meant in the statement was that it costs about 300 and something thousand for the irrigation of the Litchfield Square route compared to the 90,000 quote we're getting for the new roundabout.
So
it's
it's
way
way cheaper.
So what did the landscaping project, looking at project Litchfield Square versus project just north, what are the two numbers? What's comparable to this 370,000 you're coming to us with?
The 90,000. So the new roundabout up on the hilltop is 90,000 of that is irrigation of the 370.
This budget you presented, this memo is $400,000. You're going to cut that back to 370 by eliminating pavers. What is the comparable numbers that we spent on the current?
I'd have to get into the lump sum. So Aiken Garner gave us a lump sum for plant material. They didn't give us a lump sum for, so I would have to go
look
back.
at the lump sum. We had a total expense on that roundabout of something. And we need to know, I'm going to judge whether staff is bringing me a reasonable proposal. I want to compare apples to apples, which is two roundabouts that are basically identical. And I did not carry away the concept that this roundabout up north was going to be anywhere near $400,000 for landscape.
Mayor, and I do want to point out that 45,000 of it is the restoration for Sunset Terrace. So from the 370, we take another 4, so we're closer to 325. 300 and some thousand, and I believe it was almost $1 million in landscape material, paving baskets. So we're well over, just a little over $1 million in landscape irrigation for the Litchfield Square roundabout, compared to 410,000. These are high level memories. I have not gone through the Garner cost prices in a little while. I just know that the current roundabout is coming in cheaper overall than the existing roundabout that we have. Now this has a lot more to it. We have way more dense plant material, a lot more laterals were installed, a lot more bubblers, a lot more like the uplights to the palm trees. So that, which is in that little over $1 million, that was a standalone price. So we did a lot more dense landscape and irrigation in the current than we are proposing at the top. On the hill, proposing aesthetics that are similar to what is being proposed on the frontage of Olive Freya and the library, which is a little bit more stretched out. And that was kind of the theming in that area. So we want to jam it all in like we did down here. It's a slightly different aesthetic element, but it's the same characteristics.
It sounds like we're doing less.
We're doing
We're
less,
spending
but we're
more.
still, I don't know what we're spending on. I don't know how to compare them.
Do we have
This
actual?
this is a situation we need to deal with this now because of the opening that we've got coming up. Is this work done already, or it's getting ready to be done?
I've directed the contractor to install the irrigation. They are working on it right now. Irrigation. And the restoration along Sunset Terrace.
I
I
told
promise that.
Page digging to the GMPs for our newer council members, that's the GMPs for Litchfield Square. We can dig through this and we can give you a number of what it costs altogether. We can't give you that right now, but we can. Let's take some digging, put a number on that. It's not broken down, but we can do that.
I would like to see us have that comparison, an apples to apples comparison before we approve this budget. So we're not making another error. And the best thing we can do to try to judge that is to look at what we already did.
We'll have to do a little bit of work because the GMPs for the roundabout were connected to Village. So I have the whole Village extension roundabouts, and then a portion of Loma. So I just have to get in there and break up the units, number of units. So if we got $100,000 for one item, it's probably 65% of that item was for the roundabout. But I just have to get in there and do those.
So is it gonna cause a problem with meeting our requirements if we postpone making this decision until the meeting we've got the canvas to vote? Wednesday or
We
Thursday,
don't know yet when the canvas comes in.
Wednesday or Thursday, is what we've been told.
Not, maybe if we have an approval to allow them to continue with the irrigation, they are really having, some anxiety about making sure we have the irrigation before the plant material is brought in. So, we have to build the irrigation anyways.
We don't have any issue with irrigation though, right? Doesn't sound to me like,
Assuming that the price is comparable, no.
But I can tell you that's a good price.
not enough else.
That includes the control, all the wiring, all the sleeves, all the laterals. That's a good price, all the wire, all the way throughout.
So to that point, do we want to approve the irrigation now and come back to the rest later?
That's what I would like to do, come back in our next meeting, and I'd like to see a comparison. I wanna have some way to feel like this number is reasonable. I don't feel it's reasonable today. Maybe it is reasonable. We can look at what we spent before. But, just as a, a decision standing by itself, I look at, we'll call it 350,000 for landscaping, basically a little round area in the street. It just sounds outrageous to me, but maybe I'm not looking at it correctly to understand and compare what we've done over here with what we're doing up there and understand that the costs are comparable. And then the next thing to you is going to be, why would you not use these costs down here to make the estimate you brought us from Nesbitt? So that is what we just built. We just built one of these. So we should be able to get our numbers a lot closer because it hasn't been that long since we did it. Yet we're still way off. So, I mean, that's why I had this concern. And if your original estimate was based on the knowledge you had at the time you made it, which would include Litchfield Square roundabout, why would it makes no sense that it would be off this much. So let's take a look at the two and understand how they're either comparable or not comparable and why. So is there a motion to approve, spending up to $110,000 for irrigation work and other things that are ongoing with landscaping at the roundabout at the hilltop?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? And the understanding is this will be back on our agenda in our next special meeting when we canvass the vote. And we'll look at analysis to see if the number of whatever is an additional $160,000 number. This is not $160,000 and not $100,000 in addition to the 191. It's giving you authority to go spend $100,000 on landscaping, not landscaping, but irrigation.
We've already approved 220.
Right.
But if we've already approved to 20, then you don't need anything from us today.
You're-
Is
Yeah,
that correct?
we have plenty of budget to take.
All right, so is he withdrawing the motion?
I withdraw my motion.
All right, so we're gonna table this item until the next special meeting for canvas. I don't know, Joe, do we need a vote on the table or can I just table it?
Yes, Mayor, if we could have a vote on the table.
All right, is there a motion to table this item until our next special meeting when we consider the canvas of the vote?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll break this up in a couple of weeks. Next item is pavement treatments. Mr. Bransky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I don't have a full presentation, but the item for you is to request the use of $210,000 not to exceed to advance Palm Street and Cascada from this upcoming year's pavement management plan to this August approximately to do a mill and replace for Cascada from Neolin to Villanueva and to do a crack seal and micro seal treatment on Palm also from Neolin to Villanueva. Additionally, the striping the downtown streets for Wigwam in front of City Hall and in front of the businesses, Old Litchfield Road in front of the businesses and in front of the school to touch up parallel parking, on-street parking, traffic lanes, stop bars, school, crosswalk, school, and labeling letters and insignias, bike lanes, stop bars, all the striping between Sagebrush and the north side of the Honeysuckle to restore those high visibility crosswalks. Normally we would do this in the springtime approximately after we have built up the HERF fund. So instead of using HERF funds for this $210,000 worth of work, we would have to use capital contingency. Open to field any questions, discussions.
Can I make a few points first? That's
Yeah,
okay.
go ahead.
Thank you. First of all, I would tell you, don't worry so much about the capital contingency. So HERF money comes in over time, right? However, when you think about different city funds like HERF funds, general fund, contingency funds, it's easy to think about that it's multiple accounts. It's not. It's one pot of money. So where it comes from is more on paper than it is anything, if that makes sense, versus reality. Okay, it's one pot of money versus there being a HERF pot contingency pot. So I wouldn't worry so much about that. The HERF money will come in over the year, and you have money in general fund for streets anyway. As Keith is saying, these roads would have been done in spring of 27 anyway. This is just moving the projects up to August for Cascada and Palm. For Palm for crack sealing, for Cascada for a total mill and overlay because it's much worse, and for Thermo. The Thermo will make the striping look new, make the school stencils look new, those kind of things. They've already done those in the areas where they were sealing before. If you notice the nice white paint up near the Reds, for example, right? But the areas where they didn't work, for example, on South Old Litchfield Road, they look bad. So this would redo those areas, repaint them, and actually do them in Thermo versus public grounds, do it with a stencil and can of paint. So this is a longer term. It looks better, looks more professional. That I don't think the real meat of this conversation is. I think it's pretty clear in the projects again, in that it would do Palm, Cascada, and it would do Thermo. If you don't mind me saying so, I think the real question council has here is what happened in this process. Why were certain streets done versus not done? How do we fix these issues? I think a lot of this was that the public didn't understand. The public didn't understand why we were resealing the streets, paving the streets, whatever you want to call it, and not crack sealing them. And I think that's the reason for moving, is for moving these projects up, is we can address this issue with residents having questions. We can have issues with residents not I'm sorry to say, not trusting staff, because that's not an issue that we can have. These are issues that we can fix, and we can fix them now. So again, this is just moving projects up from next spring to now to get them done. Again, for Cascada, Palm, and the Newsom Thermo, which is more, it looks nice more than anything. Okay. So I think that's the bigger thing here, is that we have some issues that we can address, that we can fix. Again, it is unfortunate that we're gonna inconvenience the residents again to redo the streets, but they will be fixed. That being said, keep on back to you. Would you like to add other comments on the process and how we're gonna address these things, or errors that were made, et cetera?
Well, with this latest effort, we did well over 100 streets. And so the effort we did 2 to 3 years ago, this latest effort did what we didn't do those couple of years ago. So almost all the streets that didn't get addressed in 2023 with, I think we did 130 some odd segments. This stretch we did 100. I gotta go back and look at the exact numbers. We added some streets, but it's in the neighborhood of 130 to 140 street segments. That finished off a lot of the streets that just didn't get attention. In between there, we did Litchfield Road, Mill Overlay. We did Dyke Star Indian School. We did some of the major intersections. So in every, and I put this in the communication, every 10 years, each street gets 1 to 2 treatments. That's about on average. When I go back and look at everything all the way back to 1992, I think is when our 10-year plan really has some data. So this will catch us all the way up and put us a little bit ahead of next year's. So I don't know if we wanted to go down every paragraph where we discuss all the street segments, the communication, the public outreach, or if that's something we want to.
I would get the hot ones.
Okay. So as part of the outreach effort we did for this project, we had a combination of flyers, mailers. I think we have 4 locations on our website, plus the street section, public outreach, or I'm sorry, social media posts, social media posts. We had some press releases, email blasts to all the HOAs, fire, school, municipalities, the Air Force Base, that kind of thing. And we, much more robust than we had in 2023. We hired a public outreach firm to handle our hotline, of which they fielded many calls. And we had them handle the notification mailers, which I think we reached about 24 of the 2,600 homes here in Litchfield. So we also fielded a lot of calls here in the office. Many of the calls, you know, I probably got no less than 500 calls. Every time we had flyers go out, I got a lot of phone calls. Where do I park? When can I expect it? Where is there any updated information? Lots of questions.
My question, Keith.
Sure.
How do we fix the shortcomings? I think that's the question.
There's really 2 questions. I mean, you described a more robust process, but the more robust process was adopted in the middle of the project. Project didn't start out with a more robust process. It had a process, but it's not particularly effective in a lot of cases, and there was a review of that done, and then you changed the process. Is that correct?
We added the public outreach consultant who did the mailers and had the hotline. Everything else we were already doing. Yes.
We did that because we did that because we were not being successful at what we were doing. Okay, so that, I think it's really important that we acknowledge that we started out with a process that caused us a lot of problems, a lot of communication errors. We added to the process by hiring an outside consultant. That was something in addition that we had not done before. Okay, because our original process was not really effective. The second thing is, there's no question that we are, no matter if we have a perfect process for communication, there will be some people who will not get the communication. We have 15 ways of contacting them. For whatever reason, we're going to miss a few people. And when we miss them, they're going to be very inconvenienced. I think everybody on council can deal with that. But it's very difficult to deal with it when we do things in a way that's not really, doesn't appear to be professional. So when we go in and we put the oil seal over a street that hasn't been crack sealed, that does not look, it just does not look right. You justify that it's okay to do that. But I don't think many people who are in the asphalt industry would tell you that that's correct. Maybe it's technically correct, maybe it's that, but it does not look correct to our residents. Doesn't look correct to me, and I have a lot of technical background. Okay, so when we couple those kind of things with the fact that we have problems with communication, then we look as a city, we look really unprofessional. We look like we don't know what we're doing.
Incompetent.
Incompetent. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to describe it. And staff needs to take that, it needs to take that to heart. You need to take that to heart. You put the city as a city, our city was put in a very bad light because of the way we did this. We were trying to do something good for everybody, but there's bad taste in people's mouth because we look incompetent. So it's very important that you take it. I'm saying this to staff. You take this to heart and you fix it so it never happens again. It's that serious. Yes, please.
If the communication was done properly, you wouldn't have got 500 phone calls asking questions. Okay? When I took the list of mailing addresses that we sent out, after the first set of problems, 30% of the addresses that we mailed were outside our city limits. Another 20% were mailed to apartments within the city limits. So 50% of the mailers that we did were not individual homes being affected by the streets that were being handled. So it was ineffectual communication in some way. And then when people raise their hand to say, I've got a problem, or why wasn't this done? They were either ignored or they were talked to in a manner that's less than professional. And that's not acceptable because it puts us out here in the face of the city to have to respond to these things and justify why we're acting this way or why we're not doing things. And some of these things are really seriously just common sense things. I said, in this discussion point that we're talking right now, we're talking about crack sealing palm. And if we're talking about crack sealing palm, it's the same thing and coming with that wet swab and feeling the crack and then putting the slurry back over it, then that's not effectual on cracks that are 2 to 3 inches across the entire street in 20 plus places. People have sent pictures of their bike tires fitting inside these things. How that was not a priority in this project that we did, much less having to come back and say that we're going to do it in a ineffectual manner to do the road, doesn't make common sense. So I don't understand when I look at the roads that were done, how Cascada was skipped. I don't understand, even after we come back and say that Palm's going to get done, why we're going to do it in a way that's less than effectual, so we have to come back and redo it again shortly. This makes no sense. These are judgment calls that you're making that don't make sense to me. So the striping, yes, we need to get that done. Contingency, whatever it is, if we need something, I don't know why this didn't continue on the annual budget that ended in June, that we just didn't roll it into the 27 and have it asked to get this done. So we didn't have to redeploy Roadrunner to get any of this stuff. It does not make sense to me under any circumstances. When I read your council communication in here, what I read was you justifying the behavior and the actions that you did and not accepting responsibility for the ineffectual use of what you did. Roadrunner did a functional job in getting the asphalt down. I had to call you because they were out there screaming and cussing in front of my home, to the point that my father heard the project manager cussing on the job at the men in the middle of our neighborhood. We've had multiple calls where people were asking what was going on, and they didn't get comfortable responses where they felt like they were being listened to. This makes no sense why we're doing it
and just stopping, you're not thinking of the citizens. They'd be glad to be inconvenienced for a day if they know what it's gonna be. If we got good maps that are out there, if we had good cohesive communication. Just because we've done more than other cities doesn't make it right. It just doesn't. There's a paragraph in here that, oh, we've done so much more than any other city, including this. I don't care. If it doesn't get to the people that in our city, then we're not doing it right. We got a communications team, you got a staff that cares, you got a staff that works hard. It's got to get done. It's that simple. How would you want it if it was your mother? To me, that's the biggest thing I ask every day in my business. If it was your mom, how would you do it? If that was your mom, you want to give her a map that she can barely read because it doesn't say what the main streets are for anyone to figure it out. And those are the maps that we put out there. And then on the website, when you try to find it, it's buried. Because then we've got the hillside or the Hilltop project road work going on. So you can't find the maps and what's going on here. We changed last minute and on Villanueva on work that was done back to convenience the contractor, and we didn't notify the residents of it being done. This is over and over and over. These are all judgment calls that you've made. And it makes me question your judgment. So we have done a terrible job. Somebody needs to stand up and say, we did a terrible job besides the council and the mayor. Somebody has to take responsibility for the choices that were made and how we treated our citizens. Somebody has to.
We have comments from council.
Vice Mayor.
Oh, I got a hand up. Council now.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that one of the reasons why I supported the communications, creating that position for the city last year, was because I wanted communications to be part of the operational planning and not something that, you know, is kind of a afterthought or, oh, we're having a problem, let's bring in communications. I would really like to see, I guess, let me be very clear about it. My expectation for city planning and projects is that communications has a seat at that table. That's going to strengthen the internal processes for the city, and I think it's going to be a value added. I also just want to say that, you know, I obviously am going to support this request because the work needs to be completed. And I also wanted to dovetail into that too, because over the past time that I've been on council, I have asked a lot of questions about the project planning and the budget and our capital improvement priorities. And I've even talked about our debt. And all of this kind of led up to how council is investing our resources. We have limited resources, and we can only make these decisions well for the residents if we have confidence in the information that we're given. So I'm going to come back to this, and I'm going to ask the city manager, what steps is the city taking to strengthen our internal processes so that we can have greater confidence in the projects, the planning, the budgeting, and the execution?
Thank you, Councilman Brown. Those are all fair questions. I would agree. I think there's a lot of facets to this. Obviously, the first one is communications. I would agree 100% with having the city, communications director be at that table, and certainly she should be, right? We've discussed further communication efforts. I would agree with Mayor. There's always going to be some people that you're always going to miss, but I think there's definitely, I think it was in QCC, maybe I'm wrong, but additional communication methods we can utilize, such as boards. We've discussed an email list. I think we use multiple facets, ones that we're not using now. We don't have an email list right now. I do think it will take time to build that. So I want to be clear on that. But we should have an email list, and that's something we can do through HLP. The boards are expensive, but I think it's better to drown people in information than not enough. So I do think that's something we can do. I would agree with the point that it's not fair to tell people we're going to pave your street on Tuesday, then change it to Thursday. Obviously, that's not fair to people that know which side street to park on. Communications we can definitely work better on. I think as far as, we have to look at this as far as how the residents see it versus how staff sees it, right? And that, right, it doesn't make sense to a resident's eyes, engineers are not, doesn't work, comes to about streets. To look at a street and see that it's freshly painted, but not cracks still, or if there's big cracks in the street, that doesn't make sense. We have to look at how the residents see that, how they perceive that, because perception is reality, and we have to look at those things. I think we have a lot of work to do here on communication with residents on this project, but also too on project coordination to make sure that we're doing the streets that need to be done, the ones that need to be on overlay. I understand what from discussion with you, we've had many about this item, that he didn't come back and ask council for further funding because he utilized all of our funding. And he did, and that's great. But obviously, it would have been better to have come back to council and said, Mayor and Council, we spent 100% of our funds. I request to spend another 200,000. Or as Councilmember Claire said, kept rolling July 1. Obviously, that would have made sense as well, right? To have done, it's better to come back to you guys and say, we'd like to keep moving, is that okay? Versus to be where we are now. I think that's 100% clear. I think that's all things that we can work on and getting this where we need to be. And obviously, too, we need to take a closer look at our roads to see which roads are repaved, which ones we're not, and why, right? Is it true that they need cracks? Is it true they're doing overlay? How bad are they really? All of these are things that we should be addressing, looking at ourselves, whatever that means, without the residents having to say my road's falling apart. Right? Obviously, those are things. Yes, ma'am.
Matthew,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not going to get into the details of how this project was executed because I think that's not my role here. It's really staff. What I'm saying is that I want to have confidence that when you come to council, that you have already put together, you've spent your time in the project planning phase, of which communications has been at the table, and that this project will be well executed, and that's my expectation when it comes to council for funding. So all that to say, I appreciate what you're saying. These are my expectations.
Understood. Thank you, ma'am.
Councilor Brainerd.
I agree with communications being the issue. I think though, we're at an interesting point in time where we got to find what's the most effective way of communicating. Because like I think somebody said, we put messages out everywhere using Facebook, using all of our different ways of communicating. But I'll tell you, I fielded one phone call and I told them that it was on Facebook, it was on the city website, it was all the places. And I got told, I don't look at those. And I said, okay, well, if your street's affected, you should have received a postcard or some kind of a mailing. Well, I haven't checked my mail. My husband checks the mail. So I said, well, you might ask him because I just got mine or I just saw it. And so she went back and talked to her husband, and yes, it had been there for a week in the junk mail. And that was kind of led to later. She called me back and said, one suggestion I think we ought to think about is using the QR code. So if you're going to do this street, you put up a sign with a QR code and above it, want to know when your street is being paved. Hit this QR code and it has a date and you can update those simply. That's an easy way to do that. And then maybe that would take the having to have everything long-term planned out, communicated, in so many different forms out of the picture or make it less important. If they can just drive out the exit. One comment was made was that all of the exits and entrances coming in where they needed to come were closed. And it was a valid point at that point in time. But so that's my thought.
So
Thank you.
questions on the project?
Councilor Claire.
Crack seal. Is this going to be the same crack seal that we did on Village Way, that other roads that the plan for Palm?
Councilman Claire, so the crack seal will be the same as Burke. So we crack seal and then micro seal, same as we did right up here in front of City Hall. So we'll put a crack seal down, fill all the cracks, and then the micro seal up.
I'm not an engineer, but I would tell you common sense tells me that cracks that size should not be filled with just a loose liquid.
It's not, so we had a 4-inch crack. I don't know if you remember along here, you can look at Google Earth, it was big. So with the contractor, anything that's bigger than 1 inch, It's a polymer modified with aggregate in it. So it's like a sandy crack seal, so it actually has meat to it. Nothing has failed out here on Big One, get arterial traffic. That'll be the same material put down on anything that's bigger than an inch. And I do want to say that, so the reason why we do PMM on streets in advance of microseal is you can do it up to 3 years, but you usually just want to do the first year. It does several things. It reduces the oxidation, but also provides kind of a tacky material that you want to set up for a long period of time. So we do the microseal. It's a rejuvenated surface, and we put microseal over the top of it. So we did PMM on Birdland a couple years ago, 2 years ago, and the microseal happened this year. So it is a surface prep without the crack seal. You don't want to crack seal, PMM, and then microseal. So there is a little bit of method to the madness on particularly Palm, Big One, and
So
Birdland.
I would tell you that Tom, the road itself, where it's good is good, but it has seams that just seem to be consistent in distance that are completely running all the way across the road in multiple spaces. To me, it makes sense to treat it like a pothole and carve that out and relay asphalt down. That might take longer, it might cost more, but to me, that's going to give the road a longer lifespan because the remaining piece of the road is in good shape. So that's just a layman thinking that makes better sense to get life out of the road. A longer lifespan on the road that's going to give us better use of our dollars going forward. Cascada, again, same thing. I don't know how we skipped that and did other roads. It looks, but to me, the Palm thing, maybe I'm the only one. I don't think just laying crack seal down and then coming back and does not feel like it's treating that road and the people who live on that road with the respect that they deserve. It doesn't feel like we're getting it to be a smooth surface that they can go up and down on a daily basis.
You shouldn't use the pothole method as tells where players, so basically cutting out sections and rebuilding it versus crack sealing.
Always do that. But I can tell you that the crack seal, like we did out here, we had a 4-inch crack that ran down Wigwam that we filled with this new material and then microsealed over the top of it. Has been shown. It is a good product. It's not just crack seal. We're calling it crack seal because that's how everybody knows what crack seal means. There's a polymer modified crack seal. But they use it on HEDOC.
Okay.
So I wouldn't do it if we weren't microsealing. If we weren't microsealing in what we thought was a year, then we would do the same thing we did on portions of Wigwam Village, which is.
Just understand the amount of scrutiny that we've been under with this road work project. If we come back in after the fact and do this project under these circumstances and it is half-assed, it's going to look worse than anything else that we've done.
And there's always that. So an example that I like to bring up of what you just don't know what you're going to get is the year I got here, we milled and overlaid Florence from Wigwam to Fairway, almost to Fairway. That decision was made before I got here. So they milled it out and put brand new asphalt. It's beautiful. And then a month later, all the reflective cracking popped up. So that was an evaluation. We did a PCI index. This all happened before me, but I remember all the material that the person experienced in looking at asphalt made that decision, added it to what he's list of what to do. And that reflective crack showed up within a year. So, but in the same sense, some of the areas were microsealed years ago in these cul-de-sacs along Villanueva, not a single crack. So there is, in pavement management, I did for 5 years in a row, I did all the city of Glendale's pavement management for years. Did 3 million of slurry and microseal. It really depends on a lot of things that you'll have some sort of reflective crack. So I don't want to say it's going to be beautiful forever.
It's not expected to be ice, but I mean, I will tell you that this road project has been a year because I personally went around the city of Litchfield and turned in over 100 road projects last September and October. And we just got to them in May, June, and we're not through half of them at this point. And I don't want to see these things get done in a way we have to keep coming back and keep coming back and keep coming back.
I just don't want to put Band-Aids on stuff if we have the funds to be able to go back and do it the right way. If there's a better way to do it, let's say that. I don't want to be cheap if it's going to end up costing us more in the long run.
Councilmember Claire, there's a lot to unpack on responding to that, and you have really good points. I can show you this spreadsheet is pages long and all goes all the way across. So with the available funding that we have every year, there is a plan put together for each street to get a progressive treatment. You can't, if we wanted to go out and fix them all, we'd spend $10 million. I'm just pulling that out because it'd be something like 8 to 10 million to fix the streets the way that they ultimately have to get fixed. So with the available funding we have, even adding hundreds of thousands like we do sometimes here and there, we have a progressive plan for each street section. So for instance, skipping Cascada, we did Orange a couple of years ago. We did Sagebrush this year. Every year we do. I mean, we did Acacia this year as well. We did Vista Verde, the cul-de-sacs and Vista Verde. So every year we isolate those bad streets and move them and they put them on a progressive plan. Cascada was on for next year. It's been on there for 2 or 3 years. We PMM'd it a couple of years ago just to keep the oxidation down so that it didn't fall apart for the people. So it was in order after Sagebrush and after Vista Verde and after Acacia for years. So there was a PCI index evaluation, the pavement condition index for these streets that are getting replaced. Point is there's a method to the madness. We didn't just say Cascada, I'm getting about it. That has been on this plan for years since I started. Cascada was already identified in 2026-27. We just did treatments in between. Sagebrush was identified for this year. So there is a lot behind this plan, and we do occasionally, from what I can tell in the files, bring in other consultants that specialize in pavement index management to bring in and look at these things. So I can see that over here. We've got little contracts here and there for them to look at this. And we plan on doing it this year, by the way, this next year, to make sure that we are keeping up appropriately. We just can't get to every single street. And some of the streets make decisions on just doing a PMM because it's like 2 cents a square yard and it saves that oxidation for the next 2 years while we save up enough HERF funds to get to that street. So I just want to point out there's a method to the madness, and we do have an approach, and it does every year. I was here in 2023. My phone didn't stop ringing, and neither did Woodin's. Mr. Mayor, I did say robust in the wrong format. I meant we have a more robust communications and outreach and education than we did in 2023, not from this year. So I can remember that many years ago, my phone just didn't stop ringing. That was my first task as a city engineer, was to work with me to get those streets done. A lot of phone calls. People just didn't know what was going on. We tried to upgrade on this, and we have a lot more work to do. And to answer your previous question, Councilman Leclerc, Mr. Mayor, this is my responsibility for this pavement debacle. So it is the city engineer, the engineering department's responsibility to deliver the streets to the city, and that includes a communication effort. That was a subpar effort, and we are going to get better.
Thank you. So I remember you telling us in a early year council meeting that you had a third-party engineering firm evaluate the roads and give you input as to what roads needed to be done. Is that something that's accessible that we can see?
Councilman Rivera, so that's kind of what I was leading into. So we had the evaluation from a few years back, and then that plan was pushed out into the upcoming year. So we have that plan, and then we do streets here and there back. We didn't hire the pavement management indexing company last year. You do it every, I don't know, I think it's every 3 to 5 years if you really want to, or if you have like the city of Goodyear, they do it internally. So that was done under the EPS management, and EPS has been monitoring what plans go out each year. So they develop the plans for this year on which streets we're going to get the treatment from that indexing that was done a few years before that. So it's kind of a collaborative effort of.
So the EPS report is the one that said that we should redo Sagebrush and not Cascade or Palm. The EPS report is the one that said that we're gonna spend money on redoing Bird and Villanueva, but not take care of these streets that are all busted up.
Not in those words, but there was a progressive plan that identified bad streets, like the ones that are having rocks come apart and cracks opening up. And those were put on the full replacement or mill and overlay effort. For instance, your subdivision was done a few years ago, and that was on that list. So was the Vista Verde, so was Acacia, all the ones we've done recently. That included Litchfield Road. I don't know if you remember a couple of years ago, after the roundabout was done in 23, mill and overlaid all the way to Camelback. So that was on all those streets. Bird was never identified as an R because it was in decent enough shape where we can do the rejuvenation efforts like Microsteel and PMM. But some of the other streets, like Maya Tainter, right back here, we did all these. And then the various sections, and it includes Palo Verde. Actually, Fairway is on there, and along the golf course from Yolan to Fairway's on the list. But we did the rejuvenation now so that if you look at it now, you wouldn't even know. We did a microsteel on that, and the cracks have held the whole time. So actually, that was something I was a little apprehensive on, because we actually juggled between Fairway and Sagebrush on which one was going to get the R&R. And we elected it. We said, hey, we can do Fairway with a mill and overlay and crack seal. We can R&R Sagebrush now, based on available funding. So it has been working out. If you drive down Fairway on that stretch, it's in pretty good shape.
Mayor? Sorry,
Yes.
we're just kind of getting off topic. I understand the importance of tying the different projects and stuff and looking at the overall issues with regard to the treatments and striping, but just based off of the agenda item, we're kind of getting off topic a little bit.
Okay, back to the agenda item. Is Roadrunner gonna manage the traffic control on this, or are we gonna see that in a way that's gonna be more effectual for the residents? Because the traffic controls were brutal in this last batch.
That's when we're clear, that was the biggest gripe I had. I was out there every day fixing traffic control with Roadrunner. And they never correct themselves, so they're on a list. Roadrunner's on now. Fortunately, these streets, they did Sagebrush, Maria lives on there. She did a pretty decent job. When they did the R&R, she was pretty happy with it. They set up ramps to each driveway, and then the traffic only, because you're not blocking it off, you're letting people go home when you take the asphalt completely out. So they did a pretty good job on that. The one I'd be worried about is what the Palm traffic control is going to look like. So it's Microsteel. So Microsteel is not 24 hours like the PMM is. It's goes down at 9. I think they can get on 5 or 6 that same day. So what we talked about was doing half at a time. I got to go out and measure the streets, so we're going to do it today and measure between the curbs to see if we can allow half at a time and let the cars park, and then let one-way traffic go across there, and then flip it the next time, or rip the Band-Aid off and do the whole thing like we did Sagebrush and the other streets. We're going to go all the way, Florence cuts off the 2 streets, so we'll do one half and the other half same day, and then people can park on Neal and Florence. And but yes, I'm going to be very scrutinizing the traffic and their each one matter.
We're starting to get close on time. There's some hard stops coming up, so. Just interject one question. We have striping in here to be approved, and the striping is going to be the same as what we did on this one by Reds.
They're refreshing existing stripes. So everywhere you see striping in front of like the restaurants and in front of the school, it's going to be the exact same type of striping, but they're putting brand new thermal on it.
Just driving down here today, and striping in front of Reds already looks like it's warm.
That's paint.
So,
the 30 days later, they'll come with thermal. So they're close to putting thermal down.
so they haven't actually done that. They have not put down the end result of striping on these roads yet?
Not all of them, just the ones that are within 30 days of completion. So that one, we're probably getting close. I have to go back. I thought it was like middle of June. When we did that section, I'm trying to remember, we're about that 30 days. So they're gonna come out with their thermal machines and hit up everything that's been 30 days. So they haven't done village, that's driven in the village, that's all paint. Because we have to wait 30 days after the
All right,
material comes. So they're coming back to do more.
So it's like a prime with a more done on Westwood.
It's paint, it's ADOT rated traffic paint with reflectorized beads, and it stays there for 30 days, and then they bring their truck out, paint exactly over with thermal.
that was clear to me, but the quality wasn't there, not what I expected to see. Wait and see with this further.
If we were city of good, we would only get ship tags.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the expenditure of up to $210,000 for the pavement treatments that are described in the staff memorandum? For a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion on this item? All those in favor, please say aye.
I
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Next item is approval of agreement with Exponent. Is this going to be an executive session item or?
If we need to discuss it, certainly be an executive session, if you have a lot to discuss it.
All right, is there a desire by council to discuss this item in executive session? And more further explanation from our attorney. Okay, I don't see it, so can you give us just a brief statement and we'll see if there's a motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Mayor, council, as you know, we've been doing some discussion with this point for quite some time. And this is the sum that we have reached between them and us for $33,000 and some change. It does address some concerns as well the vice mayor had. I did make sure those were included in there. If you have questions, I would address them to Joe versus me. But I understand those issues have been addressed, Mr. Vice Mayor. And this takes care of the solution. It is a far better deal than what we were looking at previously. If you have actual legal questions, again, I would refer them to Joe.
Okay,
Vice Mayor.
is there a motion? Sorry? Is there a motion? Sorry. Do you have something to say, Mr. Vice Mayor?
Okay. Yes, like that, just one quick question to Joe. Joe, how do you approve in a public meeting, what will be a public document which has all these confidentiality clauses in it?
Yeah, and that's why we addressed the confidentiality issues in the contract. They know that it's a public document, a public record.
Okay, so you're comfortable with the way it's drafted?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the agreement with Exponent for $33,479.28?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We don't have a need for executive session, so meeting is adjourned.